Hello and welcome to Thoughts on Rice, a podcast hosted by the University of California Cooperative Extension Rice Advisors. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah Marsh, and I'm a rice farm advisor for Colusa and Yolo counties.
I'm Whitney from DeForest. I'm the Cooperative Extension Rice Advisor for Sutter, Yuba, Placer, and Sacramento counties.
My name is Luis Espino. I'm the Rice Farming Systems Advisor for Butte and Glenn counties.
I'm Michelle Leinfelder-Miles. I'm a farm advisor in the Delta region. I work on all sorts of field crops, grains and forages, but one of those is rice. And the counties that I cover are San Joaquin, Sacramento, Yolo, Solano, and Contra Costa counties.
Together, the UCCE Rice Farm Advisors seek to provide relevant, topical, research-backed information relating to California rice production. Today, Luis Espino and I will be discussing some recent farm calls we have been getting concerning pests and rice. Luis and I have gone on a few farm calls together lately and seen pests in the fields that have historically not had high populations. Luis Espino has been a rice farm advisor in the northern Sacramento Valley for almost 15 years, but he has been working in rice for far longer than that. He earned a master's degree in agronomy and a PhD in entomology from Texas A&M University, where he worked in rice stink bug damage evaluation. After that, he came west and brought his entomological knowledge to California rice, where he's been working in pest management, specifically arthropods and diseases, as well as collaborating with other farm advisors in rice research. Luis, thanks for making the time. I know it's been kind of a busy season this year. I know you've recently got a call about a rice field with grasshoppers in it. Now, in other crops, seeing grasshoppers in a field is relatively normal, even if they are a pest. So why was this a strange call?
Yeah, I mean, it's normal to see grasshoppers. I've been hearing about some issues with grasshoppers in other crops. I mostly in pastures. So when I heard that somebody was seeing more grasshoppers than normal in rice, it kind of called my attention. We typically see grasshoppers in rice. You know, they're a common occurrence. But this grower called because he was seeing more than usual. And he was worried that they were gonna injure the panicles because the rice was about to start heading.
Can you tell us a bit about the grasshoppers that you saw in the rice field?
Yeah, so what we saw, we took a sweep net, actually your sweep net, and we did a few sweeps around, and I only picked up, I think it was 2 grasshoppers, and we did like 20 sweeps, just kind of testing things. But it was easier just to see them, easy to observe on the plants. Some of the panicles were already out and you can see them on the panicles. I would say there were maybe about, on the parts where there were more grasshoppers, maybe between 2 or 3 per square yard, which is not very high. We could see a little bit of defoliation on the leaves, but at that stage, there's no concern with that. That's not going to affect yield. It's not going to affect the plant. But we did see a few panicles that had injury in them. And it looked just like armyworm injury. But then looking for armyworms, we didn't find any. So it is possible that these grasshoppers were doing something similar that armyworms do, feeding on the branches of the panicles, causing some blank branches. And that might be something that if there were enough grasshoppers, they could maybe cause some real damage. But definitely the field we saw at that density, it wasn't something to be concerned about.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. You mentioned about how many grasshoppers in a certain area. Is there currently an injury threshold for grasshoppers in rice?
We don't have a threshold. There's very little information because they've always been just an incidental insect on rice. You can always see them, but we haven't seen them at the levels that they would be considered a pest. But I still I after that visit, a couple days later, I got another call about grasshoppers, and the PCA actually sent me a video of the grasshopper on the panicle, and the grower was concerned that maybe the grasshopper was feeding on the pollen. That might cause some blanking. But again, the density didn't look like it was very high. It was probably about the same, 2, 3 grasshoppers per square yard. So I didn't think that was going to be a problem. But it's interesting that growers and PCAs are starting to notice them because they're usually there, but not at these levels.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. Since the levels that we've been seeing have been relatively low, have you been recommending people look at any kind of method of management, or is it kind of just keep an eye on it, but not really do anything?
I would just keep an eye on it. We don't have any, management practices for grasshoppers. We know the pyrethroids are pretty much the only product we can use, on the only insecticide we can use. So yeah, I would just keep an eye, and if densities get much higher, maybe I would consider using an insecticide.
Are there any insecticides registered for grasshoppers and rice?
The pyrethroids, they're on the label. I don't think the Dimilin label has grasshoppers for rice, in case you were on time. But at the problem at this time is that the 80-day pre-harvest interval. So at this time you couldn't do it.
Okay, great. Do you think there's anything else we want to talk about?
Oh yeah, so I got this PCA send me the video, and then another grower sent me some pictures too. So they're out and about. Yeah, but the numbers we're seeing, I wouldn't think they would be able to. They wouldn't do anything. I mean, I don't know. You would have to see like.
A lot of that, like a plague level of grasshoppers.
Right, exactly, just like that. Like maybe 15 or so, 10, 15 per square yard or so.
Oh, knock on wood. Let's not think about that.
Yeah, hopefully not.
You and I were also on a call where the PCA was seeing a small, circular, yellowing areas in the rice, with the rice chewed through at the base of the plant. And actually, we were actually able to see the perpetrator in action, a small brown rodent, likely a rat, running around our feet trying to get back into the field. Now, is it common to see rodents in the rice field?
Yeah, it is common. It's not, at least I haven't been able to see them until that day. Because they're probably nocturnal. They come out at night and feed. But yeah, it's common to see rodent damage. I've seen in the past these circular areas where the rice is just cut at the water level. So the tillers are cut at the water level. One sign that is rodents is because when you see the cut, it looks like a diagonal cut. It's very uniform. So it's got a characteristic look to it. And then the other common type of damage that we see from rodents is blanked panicles. A lot of times people confuse them with blast, because you see there's a number of panicles, like maybe 3 or 4, or sometimes just one, that is totally blanked out and stands out in the middle of the field. But as you approach it and you pull it up, and the whole panicle and the tiller come up, detaches from the plant. And so you know that that's rodent damage.
So we're seeing the rat damage now, but is there a time in the season when the rats can damage the rice the most?
So I would say probably anytime they would cause significant damage, because they're just those tillers that they cut. They're not going to, I mean, they might grow back, but they're not going to have time to grow back and produce a panicle. So they are reducing the number of panicles per square foot at any time where they feed on the rice plants. I've never seen them to a level that, they would really be considered economical. It's usually just a few spots.
We don't typically see a high population of rodents in rice fields, at least not at the level that would actually require some kind of treatment. In fact, most of the management practices that farmers already do actually help keep the population of rodents down. One of the main ways to reduce rodent populations is to simply remove their habitat. Watching that the ditches and levees are kept mown down or even grazed, because this can help produce shelter and food supply to the rodents, which can encourage them to move elsewhere. Now, there are chemical control options to help keep back rodent populations. In our counties and our areas, you can use bait boxes, zinc phosphide, and aluminum phosphide tablets. However, there are additional requirements for these besides an applicator license or a certificate. Zinc phosphide and aluminum phosphine are both California restricted materials. Zinc phosphide is an acute toxicant, and it can be used in bait stations and burrows. It's metabolized quickly within the target animal and has minimal secondary poisoning risks. However, because the toxicant moves so quickly through the system, rodents might only ingest a sublethal dose of bait before becoming sick, and that can actually lead to them becoming bait shy, because they recognize that, hey, that didn't taste so good, and then they won't go after any baits in the future. So if you're going to use that as a method of control, it's best to wait at least 3 months, and preferably 6 months, in between applications of zinc phosphide. For aluminum phosphine, which is, again, a California restricted material, an additional burrowing vertebrate fumigation qualification is required for aluminum phosphine use. Now, that's a test that you take down at the Ag Commissioner's office, but it is legally required to use aluminum phosphine fumigation. Now, just to reiterate this, it's not likely that the conditions of the population of rodents is going to be high enough, at least in rice fields, to warrant using rodenticides. But if the conditions do suggest that rodenticide is the best option, the rodenticide and application method should be chosen with regard to potential non-target hazards. That's the hazards that might be on any kind of vertebrate or invertebrate or any kind of organism that might be in the area that might be affected by using these rodenticides. And of course, always consult your agricultural commissioner for specific information as far as county by county specific regulations. And again, as always, follow the label. The label is the law.
I think probably the most damaging aspect of seeing this rat damage, it might be confusing the damage with something else, like, maybe blast, and then a grower or a PCA might decide to use a fungicide, and when maybe it wasn't warranted to use a fungicide. But yeah, no, I think their damage potential or capacity, I think it's at any time during the season. Typically, you see their damage once the plants are past mid-tillering or so. I haven't seen them early. The other thing about rodents, something I just thought about right now, is they can also dig in the levees. And when they do that, they might cause the levees to break. And that might be something that they can do earlier. And then you start losing, you have leaks, and then the structure of the levee might collapse because of the rats digging into the levees.
Yeah, that sounds like that could be a big problem early season.
Yeah, I know that can be a problem. Sometimes we don't hear about it too much because, a PCA or a grower, usually when they see that, they just fix it. They don't call us, ask us, like, what is this? They know it's rats. But that's another type of damage that they can cause.
Thanks, Luis, for offering up this information. So at the time of recording, we're at the end of July, and we're coming out of a bit of a heat spell. Is there anything at this point in the season that you'd recommend producers and PCAs be on the watch for in terms of specific pests?
I don't think we have anything at this point that would be, of concern. What we have coming up is that second flight of armyworms. Right now, we don't have any armyworms flying, any moths flying, but they will come. And usually about mid-August, that's when we see the peak in terms of worm activity and moths flying. And so about that time, I would say, just keep an eye on the worm population.
That's great advice, Louis. And we should all be out there looking at our fields and seeing what we're coming across, really. We have a few upcoming events that we'd like to share with you all. The UCCE Hedgerow Demonstration Day will take place on August 14th. It will start promptly at 10 and go until 12, and will take place at a grower collaborator field between Grimes and Arbuckle. We will meet at the corner of Lodi and Thule Roads. There is information on that in the show notes. The annual Rice Field Day is coming up on August 28th. That agenda starts at 8 a.m. and goes until noon and will take place at the Rice Experiment Station in Biggs, California. The field day will consist of field tours, talks from breeders, and a delicious lunch. Our final event coming up is the Rice Pest Management Course, which will take place on September 4th at the Rice Experiment Station in Biggs, California. Registration is required for this event, and that link is coming soon. The event will take place from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. The morning will have field tours as well as weed identification stations. We will then have a light lunch and follow up with an afternoon full of presentations about pest management in rice. As always, for more information, look at our other resources, which are all linked in the show notes. These include the UC Rice blog, the UC Agronomy Rice page, as well as our newsletters, Rice Briefs, which covers Colusa Yolo, Rice Notes, which covers Yuba Sutter, Rice Leaf, which covers Butte and Glen, and Rice in the Delta, which covers rice practices specific to the Delta region. Thanks for listening to Thoughts on Rice, a UC A&R podcast. You can find out more about this podcast on our website, thoughtsonrice.buzzsprout.com.
And like the growers always say, have a rice life.
Mention of an agrochemical does not constitute a recommendation, merely the sharing of research findings. Always follow the label. The label is the law. Find out more at ipm.ucanr.edu. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own, and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the University of California. The material and information presented here is for general purposes only. The University of California names, in all forms and abbreviations, are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service.